My name is Ian and welcome to my channel on home construction for people who have never done this before, which was me as of a couple years ago. Likes or follows appreciated, and actually I'm going to start with a little bit of shock and awe. This is a before and after picture that I want you to take a look at. This is the property before, and this is the same property afterwards from about the same perspective. Before, after. And what do you notice when you look at this after picture? Well, for one, of course, the house is gone. It used to be right here. The second thing is all of the trees are gone as well. We really cleared that out, and I'll get into explaining why we did that in future videos. But I think it's also important in this picture particularly to look at what was below the house when we got started. And maybe a good thing to look at again is the map that I have. This is a survey map from 2011 when they put in a new sewer system along the whole road here. And this is our property. The 1920s log cabin was located right here next to the river. You can see that this is the shoreline, and the edge of the porch is almost touching the shoreline. And that is a really kind of important long-term consideration that was always at the back of our mind for many, many, many years when we were planning what to do with this particular house. This cabin was built in the 1920s when they didn't have any zoning rules, when people were kind of assuming that the riverbank would always be there. But one thing that we observed over many years was that this space between the cabin and the edge of the little cliff there seemed to be getting smaller and smaller. So this very primitive wood tree fence, basically my cousin built this about 30 years ago. You could see that the soil was starting to kind of wash away underneath it. This area seemed to be getting smaller and smaller, and actually on one of the other property owners a little bit downriver reported that their ledge started to collapse. And the reason why should be pretty obvious. I mean, if you build next to a river, you're going to be having erosion taking place. You can see that in this particular photo. So the river would wash under here. It would kind of wash out the rock underneath, over many, many years. But eventually it would start to crumble and fall. The other thing that would happen is these gigantic cedars would latch on to the side of the cliff, and they would also deteriorate the rock as well. So at the back of our minds, when we still had the original structures on the property, was like, how long can we stay here at this location? I mean, this house was out by the time my grandfather purchased it in the 1960s, and then by the time it kind of came down to me relatively recently, we loved the view, but we were also aware that over a long period of time, this property may not be tenable in its current location. And that makes you think of, well, what are our long-term alternatives for planning a new property on the same site if this kind of ledge is slowly crumbling away? And, in 20 or 30 years, will the edge of the house start to be affected as well? And this is not an academic exercise. I'm from Massachusetts, and all along Cape Cod and Nantucket, there's a very big problem with houses that were built next to the seashore and are basically being washed away when a big storm comes around. And while this area doesn't have the same issue, because as you can see, this is kind of like a stony, shaly cliff, not sand. But it is affected by erosion, as we can see under here, and as our neighbor further downriver in that direction reported to us when they said maybe 3 or 4 years ago that part of their ledge collapsed into the water after a storm or after it froze and the water expanded inside the cracks and just broke it off. So this was a consideration for us as we were planning this particular property. Stay tuned on this channel for more videos about planning home construction for people who've never done it before, which was basically my situation before I got started on this project. Thanks for watching.